Hello everyone, my name is Jennifer Key. The work that I'm going to present today is the value of information and self-persuasion. This is a joint work with Dr. Marco Palma and Kirill Sabori. Many transactions occur under information asymmetry where the clients are under-informed about the true costs and benefits for various options. And therefore, advising clients about how to choose a product or services is kind of common business practice in many markets. For example, we can think about realtors or financial planners or sales powers. In most of the times, they suggest or recommend products or services. Yes. Like this. Okay. They're recommending the products or services for which they also can get the economic benefits from there. However, such circumstances can cause advisors to lean toward providing recommending the option that provides more economic benefits for themselves, as opposed to providing the advice based on clients' economic benefits. This kind of act of convincing others to choose a product may result in a self-serving bias, for which advisors can believe in the objective superiority of the recommended product. For example, it is kind of common to see sales training often use the idiom of sell ice to ask Eskimos to stress out the beliefs toward the products, which makes it a little easier to sell the product, and client will at the end trust advisor's judgment. There are few literatures that commented about convincing others and self-serving bias. For example, for Genizia et al., they find that advisors may distort their beliefs to enable themselves to recommend investment options, which carries a conviction from the lab experiment. And this kind of phenomenon is more likely to be happening in the presence of ambiguity or subjectivity, which also makes advisors can save their positive social or self-image. Meanwhile, Shortman et al. Also find that debaters are more likely to agree with their randomly assigned position to win in the debate competitions. However, most of the times, for the advisors, before they advise their products or services to the clients and persuade them, they must seek the information about their products or services. And since this kind of since the information is always costly, advisors either they exert effort or pay the information to obtain the information. And there are a few literatures that have stressed out that this kind of amount of people may perceive amount of time or paying a cost to obtain the information can be perceived as information value. Is it okay to move a little? I don't know, it's making a little noise here. So in turn, this perceived information may affect the propensity to self-persuade about the quality of the products that they are actually recommending to the clients. So based on this literature, we are trying to answer our research question is that does the cost of information affects its value and self-persuasion? Here we investigated how this costly information, which are paying for information or exerting effort to obtain the information, affects the propensity to provide self-interest driven recommendations to others and subsequent self-persuasion. To address this research question, we set up an environment with or without a commission for making a recommendation under different product qualities. Okay, so in our experimental setting, subjects are randomly assigned to the roles of advisor and the client, and advisors are asked to recommend one of the two lottery projects to the client, either Project A or Project B. The middle picture shows the example of the two projects. Here, the two projects are exactly the same in the way that they have a 50-50 chance of lottery, but the difference here is the payouts for each lottery pairs. Advisors, both advisors and clients are informed that advisors may have the opportunity to see the information. Okay, Yeah. I just consider if I like put it from one. This is working, right? Yeah, it's okay. Okay, I think it works. Okay, so both advisor and clients are informed that advisor may have the opportunity to see the information, while the clients does not have has the opportunity to to obtain this information. Our experiment was between subject design, where we have 4 different treatments. First one is control without a commission, in which that advisors recommends one of the 2 projects, but this recommendation does not carry a commission. And then we add a $3 commission in recommended for project A to measure like the propensity to the effect of commission to propensity for recommending the projects in the self-persuasion. First of all, it is free information in such that the information for the payouts for these 2 projects are given as free. And for the costly information, advisors at the beginning, they are in $1, and then they can either choose to see the information or not. They can choose to pay $1 to see the information or not. In the offered information, advisors, they can choose whether they want to perform a weird effort task to see the information or not. Here, the weird effort task, we use putting a combination of 25 characters of numbers and characters correctly for the 3 times. So basically, this game was consisted of 6 rounds, where the project quality varied by each round, so that we can measure how does the propensity to recommend and the self-persuasion varies by when the projects are having in the presence of subjectivity. The middle picture shows the 6 different lottery pairs, and we divided the 6 pairs into 3. We can divide the 6 pairs into 3 different cases. First one is most uncertain case, and dominant case. We use the word uncertain because for objective observer, it's not straightforward to tell which project has better options. So first of all, for the most uncertain case, the project A was either having higher risk or higher return, or it has lower risk and lower return. However, for the uncertain case, project A was either second order stochastically dominated by project B or the project B, which meaning that both projects have the same expected payoffs, but project A involves higher risk than the project B in the SOSD1, and project A may have lower risk in the SOSD2. Lastly, for the dominant case, project A was always first order stochastically dominated. More specifically, in the FOSD2, which is the last line, project A has same payouts in the low state, but it pays less in the high outcome state compared to project B. That is project A is kind of dominant, project A is dominated by project B. But in the FOSD1, project B is obviously dominates the project A in terms of that project A has always pays less than the project B. We randomized the 6 different lottery pairs in the treatments at the session level, and one of the round was selected for the payment at the end of the game. We recruited a total of 260 subjects from Texas A&M University during November 2021, and we are planning to collect more data to meet our 80% power in this following semester. The procedure of the study was as follows. First, advisors were informed about the commission before they see the information about the 2 projects, so that we can make it salient about the economic gains in terms of recommending the projects. Then advisors make a recommendation to the client. After that, advisors are asked to provide their beliefs about the client's choices, and then they choose a project for themselves, which allows us to measure the self-persuasion. At the end of the study, subjects were asked to answer the risk assessment scale and the demographic survey. After analyzing our data, we first confirmed that about like advisors' consistent behavior in terms of like recommending project A, and then choosing the same project A for themselves in the control condition. Then as a preliminary results, we find that commission does increases the propensity to recommend project A for like certain cases relative to the control, but it doesn't affect the self-persuasion. Okay. However, when it comes, when obtaining information carries like either paying $1 or exerting effort increases the self-persuasion toward the commission project, and it also increases the probability to recommend the commission project relative to the free information treatment. I will discuss about the details for each cases in the next couple of slides. Okay. First of all, for the most uncertain case, we had two different lottery pairs, which are risk return 1 and risk return 2. Let's look at the risk return 1 first. So in the risk return 1, project A was always having a higher risk and higher return. Recall that our objective of this study was whether commission or paying or information value on the top of the commission does increases the probability to recommend project A. So the first graph here shows the fraction of the advisors, those who recommended project A. X-axis shows the treatments where blue bar presents the control, red is free information, green is costly, and yellow is the effort information treatment. By comparing the blue and the red bar from the first graph, we do not find any significant effect that commission does increases the probability to recommend project A, but after reintroducing the information value, which is specifically exerting effort to obtain the information about the projects, it does increases the probability to recommend A. Now, when you look at the self-persuasion, which is the second graph, it shows the fraction of the advisors, those who choose project A for themselves. Here we find that similar to the cases for probability to recommend A, still exerting effort to obtain the information does increases the probability choose, does increases the propensity to choosing A for themselves among the advisors. With the same logic for the risk return 2, when project A has lower risk and lower return, from the third graph, we find that like commission and also paying $1 to see the information thus increases the likelihood of recommending a project A than compared to like control in the free information treatment. Then when it comes to the self-persuasion, commission does not affect to the self-persuasion, but we find that information value can also contribute to increasing the self-persuasion toward project A. That is, as a summary for this most uncertain case, commission does increases the probability to project A, but not the self-persuasion toward that. But costly effort for information can increases the probability of recommending the commission project and also the self-persuasion toward to that. Second, for the uncertain cases, we had project A was either second-order stochastically dominated by B or dominant to project B. In general, we do not find any treatment effects here for both like the recommending A or the self-persuasion. Lastly, for the dominant case, first of all, for the FOST2, where project A and B has the same payouts in the low outcome, but project A pays less in the high outcome state, commission does increases the probability to recommending like the commission project. But on the other hand, we do not observe this commission effect when it comes to like self-persuasion to the commission project. But we can see that costly information treatment or effort information can increases this their self-persuasion about their commission project. At the end, for the FOST1, when project B obviously dominates project A, none of the treatments affects to increasing the recommended project A or the self-persuasion toward the commission project, except the commission for the commission to the likelihood, commission increases the likelihood for the recommended project A. Okay, I'll just skip this one. Okay, so as a summary, the key findings of this study, commission can induce the self-persuasion, but while it increases the probability to recommend the commission product, but paying $1 or exerting effort, like this kind of information value, can increases the self-persuasion toward the commission product. As the future works, we are going to investigate the intent to treat effect by waiving one of the random rounds in the cost or your effort task, and explore those who choose opt-out to see the information. And as an extension, it'll be interesting to see in the cases that we increase like the cost to pay for the information, to see the exogenously explore the value of the information here. Okay, thank you for listening, and I'm happy to have any questions or feedbacks.
Okay, thank you for this interesting presentation. So obviously, I must say, I think I'm not very familiar with the literature, but I find it a bit fascinating and very interesting. So we know that, and I think the whole paper rests on the notion that many people make decisions for others as well as for themselves. And there is a central question that relates to how people behave when making decisions for themselves as well as for others. And I think this is very interesting, particularly because advisors have an incentive in the process and in the activity. So a central question here is, do advisors maximize their commission, or do they maximize the expected gain of their clients? So that's a broad question that that needs a lot of research. And of course, there are some research showing that people do behave differently when advising others and when making decisions for themselves. For instance, some studies show that subjects or individuals are more risk takers when they make decisions for others, but they are less risk takers when making decisions for themselves. So the whole paper, I think, rests within this broader debate. And I think another case, and I think which is also properly motivated in the paper, is people can also self-persuade themselves with the objective of persuading their friends, and that's what the paper calls self-persuasion bias. So in this context, what the paper aims to evaluate whether commission increases recommendation and self-persuasion, and whether access and the way the information is accessed, the personalized of the information affects self-persuasion. And I think it's very interesting that these experiments are done in the context of varying level of accepting. So in that sense, I think this is a very interesting case. The results show that commission that indeed include the likelihood of recommending for others, that it doesn't increase self-persuasion, which is an interesting result, and also something that deserves explanation compared to the other papers. Some of the papers that we cite heavily argue that in the same statement with some legislation. And then I also find it interesting that the results show that self-persuasion increases when advisors get information in a positive manner. And again, I wonder what drives this, and whether it's driven by inattention or some behavioral anomalies that could contribute to this. So I think explaining that definitely deserves some effort. And then I also, I also suggest we broadly motivate the paper in a broader context and within the interaction of decision making for oneself and decision making for others. And then I think, yeah, I would also, I think you already started to do that, but I think I would also try to explore a bit of intervention in the sense of how risk-taking behavior by individuals drives some behavior. Let me start there, and then we can provide us with thank you.
Any questions or suggestions? I'm sorry, it's like, I know it is really complicated even for me to explain about this study. Yeah, but.
Sorry, I missed it. It's so the role of advisory agents is fixed. So the role
Yes, the roles are fixed, but the groups were randomly assigned again, regrouped it again for each round. Yes. So these are the results that across like the for the each round. Just I have the 6 results, but just divided into like 3 cases here. Just the main thing is like when in the presence of very getting to the like uncertain cases, when it is like hard to tell like the between 2 projects are really like looks like they're similar, like or like it's hard to tell which one is better, then advisors are more likely to like engage in recommending others, and then it also like self-deceiving themselves that, oh yeah, I'm recommending this one. I mean they're more likely to recommend the commission project because it gives economic gains for them, and then at the same time they can deceive for themselves. Yeah, it actually like it is better for the commission project than the others, and they persuade to the others. But when it comes to cases like when like the 2 projects, I mean the project B is obviously like better than the commission project, then for them it's a little hard to like convincing themselves, yeah, the project like the commission project is better than the other one. So it's just kind of the cases like that. Are there any like suggestions? If not, thank you for listening.
Okay, yeah, thank you for coming. So I'm going to talk about non-classical measurement error and farmers' response to information. So this is a joint work with my co-authors, Chris Barrett from Cornell, Talib Hidar, and John and Wilbert from the World Bank, the LSMS team at the World Bank. So to give you a bit of background, okay, so there is obviously an increasing interest in measurement error in general and non-classical measurement error in particular in the context of agricultural household surveys, both in Africa as well as other countries. And because of this, there have been several studies recently.
Screen, Zoom.
I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. How about the ones in the Zoom?
I don't think there's anyone online.
Okay, okay.
Yes,
fine.
I can hear you.
Okay, so yes, okay, so yeah, because of this interest, there have been some recent studies showing that measurement error in general and non-classical measurement error in particular may represent not just misreporting or survey errors, but also some inherent behavioral mistaken beliefs or misperceptions by respondents. So this is important in the sense that if what we call measurement error is not just survey error, but also farmers, for instance, inherent mistaken beliefs, then understanding this and addressing some of these errors appears to be crucial for several reasons. For instance, these mistaken beliefs might be some behavioral anomalies that could or that deserve attention and correction. And secondly, I think we also want to know how much of these errors can be corrected so that we can gain efficiency gains or any potential productivity improvements from the farmer's side. And of course, this is also particularly important because the mistaken beliefs that we see in some variables of interest, for instance, in the context of land area, could affect other decision-making process. So in that sense, we need to understand and evaluate how much of this can be corrected using different tools. Okay, so what do we do in this study? We embed a randomized information experiment within a large agricultural household survey in Malawi with the objective of studying the extent, drivers, and persistence of measurement error. And then we also want to study how farmers respond to a new information that is meant to correct measurement error in their inputs. And then we also want to learn how, or at least understand how farmers learn and adjust to demonstrably accurate information about their plot size. And that's both in terms of how they correct their errors as well as how they behave in terms of responding to other questions. The experiment is built into the Malawi National Crop Cutting Study that was implemented in 2019 and 20. And out of the whole sample of enumerations or rural enumeration areas that was meant to be covered for the large LSMS survey, we randomly selected 72 of the rural EAs to be included in our experiment. And then in each EA, we selected 24 maize cultivating households randomly. And then we assigned 16 of them to be what we call the treatment group, and 8 of them are assigned to be to the control group. I'm not going to show you the balancing test, but you can see that in the paper, we show that the randomization generated balanced observational characteristics across treatment and control group. So here is the description of the treatment in the control group. So in the treatment group, we administered 2 surveys. The first one is what we call the post-planting, and the second one is the post-harvest survey or visit. So in the post-planting visit, what we did was we administered a short module on parcel and plot level management. And then from that module, we randomly select, or the enumerators randomly select one maize plot, and they ask the manager of the plot to self-report about the plot, both in terms of area and other characteristics. And then once the farmer reports the site of the plot and other information, the enumerator takes the farmer or goes with the farmer to the field and measures the area of the land. And then immediately after measuring the area of the land, here is our information treatment. The enumerator tells the farmer, okay, this is your area of land, and you have made this much of error, both in terms of percent and in terms of the amount of error. And then after 3-4 months, we went back, or the enumerators went back in the post-harvest survey, and then they asked them about the same area, and they asked them other questions about fire management and input use. For the control group, we only administered a post-harvest visit that was administered when we were administering the post-harvest visit for the treatment group. And That means the only contact we had or enumerators had with the control group were during the post-harvest. And then we administered a uniform or a unified agriculture household survey in one setting. And then once we administer or the enumerators administered that, they randomly select a maize plot and ask the farmer to guide them and take them to the plot, and they measure the land. So this is typically the type of process or survey measurement that's mostly applied in the LSMS surveys that we have in several countries in Africa. So here we have some results. So the self-reported plot size are overestimated for smaller plots and underestimated for larger plots. So this is the distribution of measurement error, and you can see here I have the mean self-reported value in the post-planting. PP stands for post-planting, and then we have the GPS value, and then we have the mean value in the post-harvest. So you can see that what's important here is you can see that the size of the error declines as we go as we increase the size of the plot. So that means there is what we call the mean reverting type of error. And then you can also see that the error or the measurement error remains there even after we give them the information. So that's the type of error in the post-harvest. Here we show the distribution of self-reported and GPS values, and you can clearly see that there is a huge amount of rounding in the self-reported value. You can see that the self-reported values are clustered around some rounded values, and this is mainly driven by rounding. And then the next question we asked was, is the rounding symmetric or asymmetric, because it had important implications. And here what we show is the distribution of the GPS values against the rounded values. And you can see here that the median or as well as the mean GPS values are always lower than the self-reported values. And that means farmers are mostly rounding up rather than rounding down, because that's the pattern that could generate this type of. And then here we parametrically characterize measurement error, and we did that by running a simple regression of measurement error as a function of true plot size and other covariates. And what we see is, you can see that it's negatively correlated with the true value, true plot size, and you can see that rounding appears to be a major driver of measurement error. So that's a simple test of whether a measurement error is behaving classically or non-classically. And then here we provide some evidence on the distribution of, or on the distribution of measurement error in plot size before and after the treatment. And here we have this control group, and then we have the post-planting, and then we have the post-harvest. So in the post-planting, there was no any intervention. So you can see that there was no significant difference in the amount of measurement error in the post-planting and the control group, because there was no any intervention. But after that, you see that the control group measurement error and the measurement error in the post-harvest varies significantly. And this is both in terms of the share of underreporting as well as in terms of the size of underreporting. And I think what I find most important here is it's mostly those who are underestimated their plots who are adjusting now. Not everyone is adjusting, and you can see that this mostly happens for larger plots. We provide some intuitive explanation into why that may be the case in the paper, but here we show that learning is sluggish among the treated, and to show that what we did is we plotted the distribution of measurement error in the post-harvest against the post-planting. And if all farmers were adjusting or correcting their errors, we should see a clustering around the zero values because the measurement error in the post-harvest should be zero if farmers are correcting their errors. On the other hand, if farmers are repeating the same values they said in the post-planting, we should see a clustering around the 45-degree line, and you can see that there are obviously some farmers doing that. And then here you can also see that learning is asymmetric. This is even more easier to see. You can see that among the farmers who overestimated in the post-planting, 76% of them continued overestimating, while 8.5% of them started reporting the accurate value. On the other hand, among those farmers who underestimated in the post-planting, you can see that more than or less than half of them continue to underestimate, and that's the striking difference we see here. And there are several explanations, behavioral explanations, to justify why that may be the case, including what we call confirmation bias, where farmers want to hear the good news rather than the bad news. You can also see a similar pattern in terms of overestimation and underestimation, and what we see is most farmers are willing to update their beliefs whenever whenever the news is something that tells them that they have underestimated their plots. And then here we estimate some parametric regression characterizing measurement error in the post-harvest after the treatment, and what we see is what we call a clear heterogeneous reaction or response. You can see that those farmers with larger plots are more likely to adjust and correct, and those farmers who had more error or who committed more larger error in the post-planting are more likely to respond. And I think we provide some explanations in terms of what may drive this, including the cost of attention to details as well as other factors. So we also show that there is some evidence of information spillover to reporting behavior on other agriculture input. For instance, what we show is once we tell farmers that they have overestimated or underestimated their plots, they start to adjust their reporting behavior of inputs like fertilizer, labor. And this is what we call, one explanation for that is what we call optimal prediction error. When respondents lack the accurate information about some of their inputs, especially some of the difficult inputs like labor and fertilizer, they are more likely to rely on some heuristics and including what we call prediction, where they predict the amount of fertilizer better on the side of land they have. And that's what we see here. For instance, among those treated and who overestimated, you can see that they lowered the amount of fertilizer and the amount of labor they reported applying. Okay, so to conclude, so we find a considerable non-classical measurement error in self-reported values, and part of that is or can be explained by rounding. And the measurement error persists even after we provide some information and treatment, and the updating nature or the learning nature is asymmetric. Farmers are willing to adjust upward rather than downward, and updating of beliefs or mistaken beliefs about plot size depends on or varies across the true plot size as well as the magnitude of pre-treatment measurement error. So there are several implications in terms of what this lack of correction of mistaken beliefs may imply, or why we have a heterogeneous response in terms of adjusting mistaken beliefs. So these are some implications for the design and implementation of information-based interventions, where in many cases, people believe that farmers would respond to information, and what we show is it's not always the case, and it can be heterogeneous. And then this has also important implications in terms of survey data collection and statistical inference, as well as in terms of understanding reporting behaviors or data generation process. Because what we find now is like farmers are predicting fertilizer application better on the information we give them about the plot site. And that means there is obviously a lot of measurement error in fertilizer and other inputs, which so far has been difficult to test because of lack of other indicators and lack of other objective measures. Let me stop here and then invite others to comment.
Discussing, I just showed some of the things that I found interesting in this paper, and then you guys can ask him questions. Yeah. So some of the things that I found interesting, especially, was how they were able to differentiate the confirmation bias versus the self-esteem one, and how people were more ready to like update the information upwards than like downwards, because they were more willing to believe that they had more land than what they initially believed. So in that way, that is one thing that I think was very interesting, the way they could like separate those effects from other things, and also how in many ways it reflects households' actual mistaken beliefs than misreporting of rather than just mere misreporting, and this could actually spill over into other beliefs that they have. And importantly, some of the things that I would like to maybe ask him is that how has he like read upon some of the ways in which while conducting surveys this could be like countered a little bit, so that to make sure that the information that they are getting from the survey respondents is kind of counted for. Is there like literature that he's read upon or something like that? And also like in some ways maybe the respondent is trying to maybe impress the surveyor in some ways. Maybe there are like some demand characteristics in play, and maybe he does not actually believe in what he's saying, but he's in some way trying to impress the surveyor or something like that. So these were just some comments that I had in mind, and the rest, like, you can ask him questions.
A question or comment, but have you guys collected any information on two things? Whether some of your samples actually have been done that type of GPS size measure already, so they wait before. And the second question is, do you know how long they've been farming on that field? My thought there is if it could go two different ways, right? If you were farming for a really long time and you have your own opinion, the plus size is this or not, it might be hard to push that belief in gets better, or they might have a better idea, less error. So I was wondering if can be across the number of years that they want.
Yeah. Shall we get more comments and then I?
No, you can just go ahead.
Okay, good. Thanks. Thanks for the comment. Yeah, these are good points. Yeah, obviously, I think there are. I mean, yeah, we cannot. Unfortunately, we cannot tell what maybe whether the respondent is trying to impress the accumulator or what is driving some of these mechanisms. I think what we can tell is, obviously, I think the farmers seem to have happy to receive more positive news than negative news. There is, I think, a whole, lot of questions about what drives this the first place, and I don't think we are adding a lot of information in terms of what's driving this, and we can only speculate in terms of what may be the cause of this. So obviously we'll continue to explore other opportunities for experimenting what may be driving that, but for now I think what they are doing. Coming back to your question, I think, yeah, we have information about whether, and I think this was also a question that was raised by others, where because ISMS survey is done a lot of surveys, and they do measure using GPS. And we asked the farmers if the report had been measured before using GPS, and I think we told that in some of their questions. I don't recall exactly what they said, but we recall that. I think I forgot some part of the question. Do you mind repeating that?
Oh, I was thinking about number of years of farming in that plot and thinking about the effect of your information treatment can be different for your relatively new farmer versus more experienced farmer for that same plot. But I can see the impact can be either you can be stubborn with your farm for a really long time, or you can do better. Right? So might be worth looking at the heterogeneous effect of your treatment across the number of years.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. We were trying to do a lot of it. I don't think we had that exactly the way you suggested. We can do that definitely, but we did a lot of interviews in the sense of the amount of land they have, or whether they are full-time workers or full-time farmers or not. One motivation for that was whether the cost of inactivation is high for the farmer or not. We have some suggested evidence that aligns with that, but I think we can definitely try with whether the amount of time they have been farming is maxes. That's a good point. Yes.
You use the term mistaken belief, which I was wondering in case of India, whether there was one farmer it would be a less and maybe underreporting how much land they have, as opposed to the other we have. And the reason they do that is because then they get access to a lot of stuff. Then that would be more of a deliberate underreporting, not a mistake. I was wondering if you had to take a guess of what mechanism could be at work, or how much of the reporting is by.
I think that's a good point. Like, yeah, I think that being one reason why they're willing to suggest that they already underestimated that with the objective of seeing that or with any other purpose. But for our case, the amount of underreporting is much lower than the amount of overreporting. Farmers are mostly overreporting rather than. But I do see your point. And if we can get simple explanation on why people make over, that could be a good explanation.
Like it might not be that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And I think that relates to our question was maybe driving these even the first. So I think it's a good point.
Thank you, guys.
This is about future data. So as you see this, we think it's more beneficial to just don't ask self-reported on area or adjust to the direction of that we know, or just use GPS explanation. So it's just what's your vision on
Yeah, this is again a very good point, a very good question. So far, our suggestion collect water because we provide different set of information. I mean, for instance, imagine if you're interested in how far we make decisions, what you need is what they believe they have, not what they have actually, right? So for that reason, we suggest letting both self-reported in these values. And for those researchers interested in understanding or predicting something, they can use the objective measure, right? If they want to understand how much of land is covered by sea or something, then they need accurate information about what's in the ground. But if they want to understand how are the farmers making decisions, then they need information about how the farmers believe what they have. So for now, we're suggesting collecting balls. Hopefully, I don't know.
I'm sorry, guys. The project is given on me now. I've texted the tech support. They'll come and fix it, and then I'll present the last session. I'm really sorry. First, the mic gave up, and now the projector.
I guess it also depends on when they misreport their plan, do they believe that support or they know they have to have and they're just telling you something.
So if you serve, they know this is they know this is it's related to this reporting method. Bring that in the
Yeah, exactly. So if we know that, so if it's purely survey or misreporting, what's assimilated, the farmers know the true value. They're just not telling you the true value. They're just telling you something relative to their mind, right? If that's the case, then you need objective measure for making income, right? So you need the difference measure, right? And I think we did that for crop variety and others, where we find that in most cases, what the farmers are reporting to what they believe rather than simply misreporting that, right? So in the case of misreporting, I think researchers need to use objective measures, and that could be gated to their thinking techniques or other sources. But if it's misperception and if what the farmer is trying to do is exactly what they believe, then I think you need some value. You need some to have some sort of that information because that is valid.
Well, how do you get it to your presentation mode?
This is the presentation.
There you go.
The mic also gave up. It was making a lot of noise, so just pick it up.
Okay.
I think I can speak without the mic.
People on Zoom won't be able to hear, but
Okay. Okay.
let me see if I can just get it to work.
Yeah,
really
just
quick. Just do the same thing.
Okay. I hope the mic is fine now. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you. Really sorry about this. It wasn't in my control. Okay. So the paper that I'm presenting is the role of signaling and anchoring in willingness to pay assessment. And my co-authors are Dr. Ji-Sang Yu and Dr. Ben Schwab. So signaling is important for sellers to convey information about product that they are about to sell to consumers in order to signal high quality for them. At the same time, when consumers are buying a product, they may have a fixed reference point in their mind about the price that they're willing to pay. And based on other information that they're continuously getting, such as previous experience, other people's experience, reviews, etc., they are updating that internal reference price. So external information and external reference price also plays a role in how much the consumers are willing to pay. And so can signaling play a role in updating their willingness to pay. So what we are trying to do over here is understand the role of signaling and anchoring and how does it encourage technology adoption by influencing the willingness to pay. So the product that we are using in our RCT over here is a sickle, which is a very fairly common tool in Bangladesh where we did our RCT, and it is fairly easy to use and a large number of farming households do own it. So there's not a lot of product uncertainty associated with it. And what we are trying to do is estimate the impact of signaling, which in our case is warranty. Warranty, because this is a fairly easy to use tool and there's no uncertainty associated with it. So this is not a risk mitigation tool, but only a signal of quality on part of the sellers. And anchoring, which is the reference price, that is the consumers are, that the respondents would be told the market price of the sickle. And we are trying to understand how both of these can play a role in promoting technology. So warranties can signal quality for consumers. This is not a risk mitigation tool over here. And reference prices can have a positive or negative impact on the willingness to pay based on the direction of the external information that they're getting relative to what they have in mind. So if in their mind, the value of the sickle is 50 Bangladeshi takas, and they hear that the market price is 150, it could have a positive impact on willingness to pay. But if they hear that the market price is somewhat 20, then it should have a negative impact. So we conducted a randomized control trial in Bangladesh, and our households were classified in a 2x2 treatment. That is, they were either offered a warranty or no warranty. In case of warranty, if the product was damaged or didn't work or something, then their price would be refunded. And in second case, they were told the market value of the good, that is in this case the sickle, versus no reference price information. So the second treatment group did not have any information. Sorry, guys. So in the second case, they were not given any such information about the market price. So these are 2x2 treatment arms that we have in this experiment. And based on that, we measure the impact of these treatments on the willingness to pay by the farming households. The way we are trying to measure their willingness to pay is the BDM method. And in this case, the participants were asked to report the maximum willingness to pay for the product. And after that, they were asked to draw a chit from a bowl and on which prices were written. And they could draw a price from the bowl. And if the price that they drew was less than what they were, less than or equal to what they were willing to offer, they were allowed to make the purchase. However, if the price that they draw was like greater than what they had initially bid, they were not allowed to make the purchase. So what we are trying to determine over here is that the respondents actually bid their true willingness to pay over here. So these are some pictures of the RCT that from the experiment that we did in Bangladesh. And as you can see, the participants are drawing from a bowl. And this is how the experiment was conducted. So in previous literature, we do not find a lot of literature that looks at how anchoring, or in this case, reference prices can have a role in determining willingness to pay. However, Berry et al., while looking at how individuals determine their willingness to pay, found that very little evidence in case of reference prices having a role in willingness to pay. And warranties, and of course, there's a lot of literature on how warranties can signal as a quality signal. And there is a lot of, there's evidence that sometimes consumers perceive the product to be of low quality if there's no warranty given alongside. And of course, if a producer gives warranty, depends on a lot of factors, including costs, etc. So what we are trying to do over here, like our contribution would be that we are trying to see that how warranty and reference prices can act as a behavior nudge to increase adoption by increasing the willingness to pay. So these are the summary statistics of willingness to pay by treatment arms. The external reference price that we told to the respondents was 150 Bangladeshi takas, and this is the mean willingness to pay across each treatment arm. And we see that when we do not offer a warranty or information on reference price, that is the control group, then the willingness to pay is somewhat lower, that is 52. However, if we give them warranty, the willingness to pay goes up by 50 and it becomes 54 Bangladeshi takas. And in case we give them reference price, the impact is even higher and it becomes 57 Bangladeshi takas. But in case when we combine the two treatments, the impact of the reference price somewhat gets diluted, and we see like the mean willingness to pay over here is 55. So because this is an RCT, so this is a balance test of how these variables differ across the treatment groups. Prior to the experiment, we asked the respondents to report if they owned any sickle previously, the number of sickles they owned, and the total value of sickles that they owned. And based on that, we find the self-reported average value of sickles. This is prior to the experiment. And then you have agricultural land owned. So there are some differences across these treatment groups, and we control for the self-reported average value of sickles in our later regressions. And this is how the variables differ across the reference price groups. And again, over here, we do not see significant differences across many of these variables, and we report for the self-reported average value of sickles in our regression results. Our empirical approach over here is simple. What we are trying to see is how warranty or an external reference price for household I impacts the willingness to pay. And we also have an interaction term to determine the combined impact of both these treatment groups, and the coefficients for that would be beta 3. V over here is the village level fixed effect, because we control for the village level fixed effect in our regressions, because there are some village level availability issues that might influence a household's access to the technology, etc. And later on, based on the self-reported value of the sickle as reported by the household prior to the experiment, we form an indicator variable that signifies if the self-reported individual value was greater initially prior to the experiment, greater than the market reference price that we gave to them. And if that was the case, what we are hypothesizing is that it should have a negative impact on the willingness to pay, because they initially perceived the value to be of a much higher quality, higher value, but the external reference price was less than that. So that group should have a negative impact on willingness to pay. And based on that, we also have an interaction term with the indicator. So over here, as you can see, the indicator is multiplied with that group was also exposed to the information on market price. So these are our basic results. And what we see over here is that reference price does have an impact on willingness to pay. And it is fairly consistent across all regressions. However, warranty does not seem to have much impact on the willingness to pay, and nor does the interaction term. So when the two treatment groups are combined, there does not seem to be much impact on the willingness to pay. And if you look at the indicator variable for how the households who had a self-reported value greater than 150, they responded, we do see a negative impact on willingness to pay, but that's not significant. So moving on, we classify our results based on the two districts. And for Sherpur, we do see that there's a positive, the results are largely similar. We do see that reference price has a positive impact across the first two regression models. And however, for the self-reported value being greater than 150, we do not see again any significant results, and we also do not see any negative coefficients or here. Lastly, we look at the results from the Naral district, and the results are again consistent for the reference price group. And we also see that for households that had a self-reported value greater than 150, we do see a negative and significant impact on willingness to pay over here. And this is in line what we had in mind earlier, that households with self-reported value greater than 150 might have a negative impact on the willingness to pay. So our basic conclusion is that warranties do not, what we have seen over here, that there's no impact of warranty on the willingness to pay. This might be again because this is just a signaling tool and the product does not have a lot of uncertainty associated with it. So there's no risk mitigation that might impact the willingness to pay over there. Reference prices do have a positive impact on willingness to pay. And as hypothesized earlier, if they are greater than they are driving up the willingness to pay largely because the average willingness to pay, self-reported willingness to pay was much less than the external reference price that we had informed the participants of. And that's all on my part. And Jennifer is the discussant, so she might have some comments, and then we'll be open to questions.
It is really interesting to see.
You want to come here? You can come here so that everyone can hear you.
Okay. Thank you for this interesting study. I really enjoyed reading your paper because most of the time it's really many papers there's a lot of papers that measure the willingness to pay using like the brand names or labelings, but I haven't seen like using the warranty to looking, and also like using the anchoring bias to looking at the willingness to pay over here. The thing that I wanted to make some comments for this paper is I was just curious whether this design was between subject design and like when the study was ran, like was it like during the harvest time or like the after harvest, because it might affect to may potentially affect the willingness to pay for that. And yep, and also I saw that like that you guys first collected like the average reference price from the first study, and I just wondering whether like this when you guys are collecting the data set for the first and second study, was it like the same like group of like subjects of the people? Because yeah, I just wanted to know what the details about like the design and in general for that. And just one additional comments about your analysis part. So it is also like good to use the interaction between the treatments, and that you mentioned about like greater than the certain like the price, but it might be also interesting to see like subsample analysis, like just separate up themselves because there might be like endogenous issues going on for those people. So yeah, that's all.
Okay, thank you. So the first part of the question is like the time when it was done. So it was around the start of 2021, and because this is, some of these are rice farmers and some of them are farmers of other crops, so they might have been like in different stages of planting for different crops. So this mostly they are rice farmers, but in that way we think that's quite it won't matter because there are like different crops that they are planting and they might be in different seasons. And the second question that you asked was I'm sorry. Yeah. So yeah, the group was the households were the same in both the like the amount of information that we were collecting for sickle prior to the experiment and after like this experiment, the households were the same. And of course, like we further on, we want to control for, we are trying to figure out how to control for the indigeneity issues and stuff that might be impacting the results. But these were the preliminary results. And moving forward, maybe there are other issues by like maybe clustering the standard errors or like, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but that can be an issue, but like because this is in our city, so we kind of hope that it kind of controls for a lot of other those variables that might impact willingness to pay.
So just a couple of questions. The first one is, what was the extent of the warranty for this? I mean, did it go so many years in terms of replacement? I mean, that's what the specifics of the warranty. And then my second question is, does the cost or the price of the sickle constitute a large part of average incomes? Because if not, then it's not surprising that we didn't see a significant impact of the warranty, right? Because if it's not a big part of my income, then why should I bother with the warranty? So I can't. And finally, do you control for income in your question?
Okay.
So three questions.
Three questions, yeah. So last question, I'll start with the last one. We haven't controlled for income yet, but maybe like if we moving forward, like clustering or something might control for any other variables. But yes, maybe we can control for income later on, but we haven't controlled it yet. And of course, sickle right now is not a very expensive tool, but like for some cases, the willingness to pay, what we saw over here, like went as far up as 500 Bangladeshi takas, but largely it wasn't that much. So you're right, maybe that's one of the reasons that warranty did not have an impact on willingness to pay. And also because a lot of, I'll just show you the main, these were something, summary stats that I had in the appendix. So already about 96% of the population is owning sickles. So maybe because a large populations were already owning sickles, so they might not have, so the warranty might not impact their willingness to pay. And your first question, could you repeat that?
Yeah, what was the warranty? I mean, what was the specifics of the warranty? Was it going so many years?
Yeah, we asked them about after, I'm not, 6 months, yeah, 6 months, not later than that.
Yeah, similar question. So So do you think there are differences about like a water pump where there is
yeah. So it also depends on the amount of risk that comes with the product. So even, for example, the question that you asked is interesting because this is like an offshoot from another study that we were conducting that Dr. Yu and Dr. Schwab were working on. It worked on like, we were trying to estimate the impact on adoption of the impact of warranty on adoption of pneumatic bags. Like even though the quantity, like the bag might not be that expensive, but the risk associated with that is much greater. So maybe that has an impact on. So it's it's obviously the complexity of the product in itself, because people might not know how to use the bag and it's a new thing for them. So it can be the complexity and it can also be like the newness of it. So this is a easier tool to use. So maybe that's an already widely available one. So maybe, yeah, but your concern is valid.
Yeah, I think probably a follow-up question. I don't know whether someone needs a warranty for a sickle. I don't know the context, but I think is it something significant that someone will benefit from having the warranty? At least I mean, in the context that I know, I'm not sure if that is a major concern. So that's the first one. The second one is, well, obviously, I think this is not a question specific to, but it's a question for whether we should estimate willingness to pay among the general population or among potential buyers. So you have 96% of the people who already have SICO. And I don't know how much of them will benefit from additional SICO. But I wonder, like, and I think I'm not an expert in this, but it would be interesting to see or at least perhaps discuss whether it is a valid exercise to estimate willingness to pay among the population or among potential buyers. And I don't know how to do that, but to me, I think it seems more intuitive to do also the data, at least to compare it. But I don't think you can do that. Something.
Okay. Yeah. So answering the first question, I don't know if I have the right answers, but like the first question, that is warranty useful in case you are buying a sickle, is like initially when I was explaining that like warranty is just as a signaling tool and not like a risk mitigation strategy. So in that way, we are just trying to see like, if you offer warranty, does it have an impact on your willingness to pay? It is regardless of how useful or not useful it might be. So just like an information that you give them an information and how it might impact their willingness to pay, just devoid of all the other circumstances. And following that, I believe that maybe Dr. you can also elaborate on it, but we think that even though a large population had this tool, but that was a reason that maybe like, even if it's like a fairly easy tool and easy to use and a large population has it. So maybe, so that means like, it's easier to understand for them to understand, and the impact is just coming from the information that they have. So
Yeah, just to add a couple there. Warranty here is warranty in general. You can think of that as a sort of risk mitigating tool for the consumer. But in this context, it's because the signal everybody has it. It's not new. And going back to earlier point, it's relatively cheap in terms of their overall wealth. So we're framing this as a warranty acting as a signal tool, like the producers or I guess us provide this. They say that this is good quality, we'll pay more. But since in this context doesn't move much.
Just a comment, maybe sickle manufacturers are very interested in your stuff.
I'm curious, if you're trying to assess whether the buyer is a warranty sickle to all, then why make warranty?
Because logistic reason, we don't have the resources to go back and assess for the 6 after systems for understanding.
Right, but I'm just thinking that the 6-month warranty doesn't really mitigate any concern about whether the sickle is replaceable with the same.
Yeah, fair point. I agree.
Yeah, I understand. It's
like the balance test. Yeah, but at the same time, like the mean is 4. So like some of the households may have it.
Maximum value is smaller.
Yeah, these might be outliers, and right now this is, but like what we did is like when we were doing, because we estimated self-reported values based on these 2 values, and later on kind of, and was it? There was a ceiling that we had associated with that. So later on, when we were putting it in the regression, we kind of took the top 1%, we venturized it, and that's yeah. Yeah. This is before. This willingness to pay is like at the time of the experiment, and this is like before the experiment, the self-reported.
Yes, that's the average across.
Yeah, and
So we have the earlier slide, go back to the slide. Yeah, that's the final. The one sheet reported to someone that is the average.
But this, is it, was the same before?
So it's-
this is after control. Yeah.
Then the reference price and more.
Now, because I'm saying that doing analysis for willingness to pay, I mean, compared to, for instance, a good will be in a case maybe for production, where you know that in terms of gains, you have comparative comparative gain between the two, and then see the change. So that's really.
Oh yeah, I see your point. So the willingness to pay, we don't have the baseline establishment, just architecture. So it's not a difference. Treatment control is a simple difference because we're not expecting to change. This is one time option. The treatment comes in 4 years.
But in reality, you expect that the control and the treatment how they sell value, then when you look at those prices. Yeah.
So we can't verify this.
Okay, thank you guys.